Nonprofit professionals, have you thought about using gift cards? They're especially helpful this time of year. Think holiday gifts for the whole team, year end bonuses, and even direct support to families in need around the holidays. Charity Charge has a free gift card program just for nonprofits with no sign-up fees or ordering minimums. Text or email a digital card for face value, no extra cost, or ship a physical card if you prefer. Let our team support your year-end projects and save money on your gifting. Visit charitycharge.com to learn more and beat the holiday rush. Now, on to the episode. Thanks for tuning in. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Charity Charge Show. Today, we are pleased for a little bit more of a unique episode. We're joined by three incredible leaders within their organizations. Both Jillian Gulan, she is the occupational therapist and kind of brain behind this idea that we're going to be exploring today of this adaptive intimacy lab. We are also pleased to be joined by Mark Bogosian. He's the director of engagement over at the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation, along with Marcia Meermans, and she is the philanthropy officer over at the MetroHealth Systems. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today.
Thank
Thank you
you
for
for
having
having
us.
me.
Really excited to have these perspectives of this story and dive into kind of the journey of this adaptive intimacy lab. And I'd love, Marcia, if you could give a little bit more context into the relationship that this longstanding relationship between the Metro Health Systems and the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation for our listeners.
Sure, happy to do that, Grayson. Thanks again for including us all here today. And so the MetroHealth Foundation is the 501c3 for the MetroHealth System, which is the public safety net hospital for Cuyahoga County here in Cleveland, Ohio. The foundation was founded in 1954 to raise philanthropic support for the MetroHealth System. And our relationship with the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation goes back to 2010. Since then, we have received 3 grants from them, including this latest one to establish the Adaptive Intimacy Lab, which we are truly grateful for. But the MetroHealth Systems relationship with the Reeve Foundation predates that by several years because clinicians at our rehab or rehabilitation institute have been working with the Reeve Foundation for a number of years. And Christopher Reeve himself actually received care at MetroHealth after his spinal cord injury.
That is incredible. Thank you for that context and setting the background for where this kind of story is going to take and begin. I'd love to, if we could dive into Jillian, your background within the story. You're a licensed occupational therapist, and I think you have over 15 years of working experience. As you kind of are working with your patients, where did this idea really start and kind of come about?
Yeah, so in my 15 years of being an OT, my primary role is to increase independence with activities of daily living after an injury. And so that looks like helping people learn how to eat again, how to get dressed, how to access the bathroom, and do those important self care activities. I work a part of a team of physical therapists who are great at what they do as far as increasing strength and mobility after an injury, speech therapists to regain cognitive function and respiratory, swallowing techniques. It's a whole team. And we have specialty care roles at Metro involving vocational rehab, driver's rehab. We have an upper extremity specialty clinic for long term rehab. So we have all this great stuff, but in all of that, sexual health was not being addressed adequately. And the first time I really came to understand that was as a 17-year-old patient had just asked me during one of our sessions if he was ever going to have sex again. And I just remember saying, whoa, I don't know. I don't know if I can tell you I don't know. I don't know why you're asking me. I have no idea what to say to you. And that just kind of began my own journey of figuring out where that fit into my scope of practice as an occupational therapist, how that fit into our environment in inpatient rehab, and how to move forward with that. MetroHealth is one of 18 model systems for spinal cord injury recovery in the country. So, and a part of that, the therapists do meet annually, and it was in these meetings that I really got to dive in deeper with other facilities aren't doing and kind of start establishing these ideas and kind of where should I go with this. That was really inspiring, and I think they really helped me to start thinking about how this could look at Metro, and then getting capstone students from Cleveland State, our local university, and getting them to do program development with me and really focusing on sexual health and what we can do for our patients in that realm. From a coworker who was able to get a grant to do an adaptive life's technology lab that really got me inspired to think, I wonder if there's an avenue here And then it led to the grant.
That is incredible. I'm really excited to dive into what that initial conversation also looked like. One more thing I'd love to set the stage for, if you could give me some perspective. From what I understand, you've identified this problem, this need that you were seeing within your work and within the community that you're serving. And the kind of two large components, there's both the education side, but then
Hmm.
also the actual lab itself. And
Correct.
can you tell me a little bit more about what that looks like and also that education piece?
Yeah. Yeah. So when I was in OT school more than 15 years ago, the first time I was presented with this just idea was through a Kessler made video from a very long time ago. And it was called Sexuality Reborn. And it can be a little shocking of a video to really introduce very important topics, very, very needed things. But that was really the only resource I had. So then moving forward from that first interaction with a patient, trying to get my hands on positioning handouts and all these things, they're very dated, old paper handouts, and really having these conversations in an open gym. Privately in a bedroom is not, up in a patient's room is not really appropriate for many reasons. There's other patients in the room, if they're sharing a room, it's just there's also, we like to maintain some type of professionalism there too. And so really having these conversations in open gym is where they were occurring at. And that's not really giving a lot of privacy to patients and a lot of dignity to something that really needs a little more respect to talk about. And so it was really starting with materials that were just outdated
Mm.
and really subpar. And then through the capstone students, and then essentially through the grant, really establishing better educational handouts using QR codes, just better resources online. Access to technology that we can actually share videos instead of on an old TV with a VHS player rolling in like it's AV
Rolling out
in
like the classroom.
1992. Yeah, exactly. So we've updated all of those things because we need to approach people with how they want to be approached. We need to bring the material to them appropriately.
That's incredible. So, realize that there was this gap with the education piece and also in terms of how you were able to deliver that education and that care. And then that really is where this need for the actual space, a
Correct.
dedicated
Yeah.
lab kind of came
Right.
about. And
Yes.
what did that initial conversation, whenever you brought this need and this idea to Marsha, look?
Yeah, so I was originally petitioned with my leadership team to contact Marcia regarding writing a grant, and I was given very loose parameters as to what that would look like and what the needs were. And so Marcia and I had met and had a couple brainstorming ideas of what potential needs, because there are a lot of needs. So really honing in on what was appropriate. And the whole time in the back of my head, I knew that this is actually what I wanted to ask for, but it was also kind of working up the courage to speak it out loud and weather Marcia's reaction.
Amazing. And Marsha, I'd love to get that reaction from you. What did it look like whenever Jillian came to you with this problem?
So this was actually the second idea that we discussed. The first one was, Jillian, wasn't it to procure portable ramps to loan to patients
Hmm.
who were discharged and return home? But
Right.
that idea was nixed when there really was no storage space for the ramps at the Rehabilitation Institute, as I recall.
Hmm.
And so then
Correct.
you and your colleague brought at the time brought this idea instead. And I
Hmm.
immediately discussed it with my supervisor, who had secured a refund while working for another organization. And we both agreed that this was absolutely a quality of life issue. So once we confirmed that with others here at the MetroHealth Foundation, we were able to move ahead.
That is incredible. Marsha, if you could give me a little bit more context, for our listeners and myself in terms of what the grant writing process looks like. You've identified the problem and now you have to go about procuring funds to solve this for your community.
So the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation makes that very easy for us because they twice a year have opportunities to submit grant applications, and they have a format, a prescribed format for their application that we need to follow. So I worked with Jillian and a colleague of hers to put the proposal together, but truthfully, they did the heavy lifting on all of the clinical components of it. That was truly the we did not create it out of thin air, in other words. So
Understood.
thank you to the Reeve Foundation for that.
Amazing. And Mark, you have this role of director of engagement over at the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation. I know you also have this background and this wealth of knowledge in terms of identifying and looking at different grants. when this one kind of came across your desk. Tell me what your reaction was to it, and I'd love to get your perspective on this.
Yeah, absolutely. And first of all, just thank you so much, Grayson, because to me, this project is one of the most important projects, one of the most important quality of life projects that we have ever funded. It has such potential impact. So when I read this, and maybe let me just take a step back, right? Because I want everyone to know how competitive this process is. Even though we offer 2 cycles a year, we have about 400 applications per cycle. So we're looking at anywhere from like 750 to 800 applications a year, and we
Mm,
grant maybe 50 a cycle. So, I mean, we're looking at very small numbers that come out of this giant pool because the quality is so amazing, right? Our process quick because I'm so excited about talking about the project itself. But let me just go into so what happens is the applications come in, they go out to external reviewers. The
mm,
external reviewers, look at it, they rate it, they score it, they make comments, and then it comes into an internal committee, which is made up of our, board members, our leadership team, others, within the staff. And I've been in philanthropy my entire career, and I've always been on the grant making side. And I have to tell you, when I read this, I thought this was the most audacious, bold, and
mm.
life-saving grant application project that I've ever read. It's funny because hearing, and I knew this before too, but hearing them talking about, at first it was for ramps. That probably would not have gotten funded.
So,
And I say that because, through our quality of life grant program, but through everything that we do, we're really looking to make sure that we are reaching people where they are and what they need. Yes,
Mm,
we need ramps, we need all of these other, adaptive sports, we need, but no one is talking about sex or intimacy. No one. As Jillian was saying, that DVD from, God knows when, like 1980, whatever. I mean, it's like that was it. Like that's it. That's what people had. You see where people they don't want to ask questions. They don't want to talk about it. They're afraid. And so this came, and I just saw this project as being life saving.
mm,
And in fact, what I want to say is that one of the external reviewers actually shared that she, who has been paralyzed for over 20 years, she said out of her 20 years of living with paralysis, she's lost 4 friends to lack of intimacy by suicide. I mean, people are starving
mm.
for this kind of information. They're starving for intimacy. And if we can normalize sexuality and if we can normalize intimacy, I mean, it's talk about quality of life, right? We are really making sure that, not only do they have all of the information that,
Mm.
Jillian was saying earlier, making sure that they know how to transfer out of their bed, knowing how to, once they get home, how they're going to do this or navigate that, or what kind of mobility device are they going to use. And it's great that we're thinking about these very, very practical things, but wow, right? To think about what are some of the most basic human needs and
Mm.
desires and wants, and making sure that everyone has access to this kind of information. So to me, I just see this project as I think this should be in every state and every rehab hospital and all 18 of the, SCI model systems that Jillian was talking about. I just think that it's incredible. Reading this, we have to then rank it and score it. And I was like, number one, number one. I couldn't believe how just amazing it was, and was so happy to be able to, then present it to the committee, who
Mm.
then, votes and all of that. So it was an exceptional application.
Incredible. Thank you for that context. And the part that I'd love to highlight, one, the fact that these external reviewers shared the truly life-saving aspect of the project, and it got the green light, and it's gone ahead. I would love if we could dive into a little bit of what the impact has been. So Jillian, can you share me with us and our audience a little bit of how it's been actually getting to now use the lab and walk through, your patients with it.
Yeah, so I will say that the overall response has been wonderful, coming from a place where this wasn't really being discussed openly. I remember I had my laptop out, reviewing things, for the grant, and my physician had walked by, and he's like, "What are you looking at?" I was like, "Mental health. How often are you talking about it?" And he was like, "Oh my gosh, I don't think I'm doing enough." Like, it was just this
Mm,
call out, and I think we've all had to look at that as a team. The response just amongst the staff has been wonderful. So first, just talking about that because it's really opened up, and challenged the environment we're in to talk about it. Like Mark had said, it's really normalizing it and making it okay to discuss. And that really is huge because we have to give permission to our patients to talk about it. We have to say, this is safe and we're here to help you through it, right? Because, like Mark said, what is the point in going through what you've gone through, going through the trauma and the recovery, if you're not going to have the good life in the end, right? We all want that good life, right? So, this is just kind of bringing it back and making it okay to talk about and talk about like really what matters for people. So that's been great with the staff. Doctors talking about it more. Even nurses are coming up to me and talking about more. I think nurses are feeling empowered to talk about their patients more, and then redirecting them to me. Unfortunately, I have now been crowned the sex OT, but that's something that I'll process through. So it's been good though for I think for our team getting the outpatient team involved in as well, to address these needs because sometimes people aren't always ready in the inpatient side to address this. There's still so much going on in people's lives and how this has been turned upside down for them and figuring out what is important and how to go about that. So I think it's important that our outpatient staff is also on board. But the patients are really excited. They're excited to talk about sex. I will say I've had some kids that don't want to get out of bed, and I'll be like, "Hey, man!" I don't mean kids. I'm sorry. Let me clarify. I have some 17 and older, 18 and older, young adults who are really depressed. They're really being challenged, through this. It's a struggle, and they don't wanna get out of bed. They don't see the point in living. They don't what's the point? And so when I say, "Hey, man, you get out of bed, I'll take you down to the adaptive intimacy lab." "What? You're gonna wait, what? We get to talk about that?" I'm like, "Yeah, let's talk about it. Let's get you out of this bed." And so for some people, it's really motivating because we
mm.
validated it's a concern. We've brought hope to them, right? Where in the beginning, that's all people wanna know, is my life ever gonna be okay? Am I gonna have that good life? So, I think the overall response has been really, really good. People are excited to talk about it. Recently, I had a patient who we were talking about some other bathroom things I won't get into, and while we were talking about those bathroom things, I just gave him permission to talk about sex if he wanted to, and he said, "Yeah, if you got handouts, I'd like to learn more." So I gave him those educational pieces that are important, and I said, "If you want a more in-depth follow-up, let's go down to the lab, see the space and get onto these wedges, get onto these ramps and really talk about it. You can invite your girlfriend to come." 2 days later, his girlfriend's in rehab and she's like, "I want to go to the room." And so all three of us went, down to the room and he transferred onto the mattress, the queen size bed we have in there. And we got the ramps out and talked about his girlfriend's medical concerns. Not that I was addressing them, but she had her own concerns and then with the patient too, and they were able to actually try the wedges because these are things that are not covered by insurance. And if you're gonna buy something, you wanna know that you're not wasting your money, especially after everything you've just gone through with this trauma. I've had a couple part of the grant written into the grant, is for community consultants or people who are living with spinal cord injury to give direct feedback on equipment and program design. And it was in, 2 of my sessions with 2 different spinal cord consultants that they expressed to me that they bought a piece of the equipment that I had in the room. They were eyeballing that piece of equipment for, like, 3 years. That equipment is $350 or I'm sorry, 800. That piece of equipment is $850. That's a big purchase. So they're eyeballing it. Is it worth it? Where can we store it? What are we gonna do with it? They both bought it. Neither of them can use it, right? And they're like, "If a room like this had existed where we could have come in and trialed that $850 piece of equipment and know that we could have saved our money," is like that would have been great. So I think the feedback overall has been wonderful from memory.
Mark, if you could dive into a little bit more, I think you had some time to visit the lab yourself. Can you share a little bit more about what this visit looked like and seeing what the impact of the grant from the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation looked like?
Well, yeah, I have to say it's interesting because when you make a grant, all your interaction is on paper. So you really don't have an idea of really who these people are. You get a sense of what the project is, what the potential is, but you don't know really. You get the resume, you get the information about the person leading the project. Going on the visit and then, having the opportunity to meet Jillian, to meet Marsha, and you see the passion behind it. And, to me, that was probably the most important thing was you then can I don't want to say breathe this sigh of relief and go, "Oh, this is in great hands," right? But you do. You just because if you walked in and they were, you'd be like, "Oh God, this was a mistake." But they and the whole staff were just so eager to be doing this. The room had just been finalized when we got there, and there was a pride within the staff. There were a gentleman from the community who was there, and he was talking about it, and I mean, it was like I'm getting choked up, right? Because it was I definitely got choked up when I was there because you read something, you want it to be something amazing, and you show up and it is. It's like everything you hoped it would be and even more so. So, yeah, and I'm like getting all choked up now, which is crazy, but yeah, I was so moved when I saw what they were doing and just, was able to meet, everybody behind it.
That's incredible. And being good stewards of this grant is the way that I would describe that, and how important it is in terms of building that collaboration between the organizations, right? And Marcia, if you could, two themes that are revealing themselves through the story is relationship building and collaboration. Can you tell me a little bit more about what that looks like for you and your organization and the lessons that you're hoping to carry into the rest of your work from the story?
So I would just say that relationship building really it lays the foundation for philanthropy, and people and foundations want to support organizations whose missions resonate with them and or who've made a difference in their life. So often these relationships, will fan out and include others in the organization, as the relationship with Reeve has. So when they came to visit, we also had an opportunity for them to meet with other clinicians at our MetroHealth Rehabilitation Institute, and they had expressed an interest in having a meeting and conversations to talk about possible future ways to collaborate. So back to your question about relationship building, I mean that's what it all comes down to is laying that foundation and then to use your word, Grayson, to steward that moving forward.
And Mark, I'd love to get your kind of perspective on this as well. As we look to the broader ecosystem, what lessons would you want to take and share in terms of the nonprofit kind of sector overall, but then also specifically for the kind of healthcare system?
Yeah, the healthcare system in general. I'll start with hopefully the easier part is, just building relationships within this community. And, at the Reeve Foundation, we serve people living with paralysis. So, most people, connect us with spinal cord injury because of Christopher Reeve and his accident. But our National Paralysis Resource Center, which is actually who, the arm that funded this project, we serve all communities living with paralysis. So whether that's, stroke, which is the number one cause of paralysis, ALS, MS, cerebral palsy, spina bifida. So we work with a very broad range of organizations. And to us, it's it's multifaceted, right? So let's say we were to and as Marsha mentioned at the beginning, we've had a very long relationship with them in terms of both quality of life grants programs and other things as well. Some of the other model systems, we work with them on peer mentoring programs. We have, military and veterans councils. So to me, philanthropy goes far beyond just the money, right? So we're talking about the relationships and sure the money is wonderful, but it can't always be there, right? So it's building upon that and building upon what can we do in addition? What can we do to enhance this? What can we do to enhance the community? And I feel that many organizations like Metro Health they understand that. They understand that this isn't just a transaction of you write the check and here's the product, right? It's we're starting here or we're starting with whatever. Now let's work together to build this stronger coalition, I'd say, for the community. So I think that always with philanthropy, it goes so far beyond the money. It's about the passion of the people behind it and the vision of the people behind it. So, like, that to me is really the big thing. The whole healthcare system, it's going to rely, it's going to need to rely on that because, as we see just even in the current, situation where insurance prices are rising, and people's needs are not changing. In fact, they may be increasing, right? Especially if there's other socioeconomic deficiencies, other quality of life issues that are happening. So we need to work together as a community. We need to partner, and this is starts.
Thank you so much. And I have a follow-up question and something that came to my mind as you were giving that incredible answer. Connecting the needs of the constituents and the community that you are serving with the values of your organization, right? Jillian, I would love if you could explain to me where the success came from in terms of communicating where this need was, because I think that was maybe what, from my perspective, was so refreshing whenever this landed on Mark's plate, right? It was really for the community that you serve, and,
Right. I mean,
it came from those conversations.
it did. So it was a slow development for me, mostly because I had fear. I was afraid of putting it out there, speaking out there. This as a full-time clinician, it really is a kind of a scary thought, I think. But really what came down to is knowing that we weren't doing an adequate enough job through those conversations, still trying to trudge through it, get the education out there, but knowing it can be better. And then just having the guts. I was laughing with one of my coworkers about this initially. I'm like, either they think I'm really brave or they think I'm really stupid. I don't know which one it is. But I feel like if you have a moment where you're thinking, is this crazy? Maybe it feels that way, but it's probably the right thing to do. When you're advocating for your patients, when it's what they need, it's not crazy, it's not wrong. It might be a little fearful because it's different. It was definitely pushing the envelope, but I think that's also was kind of my point. We needed to push the envelope. We needed to say, look, like we need to do this. This is important. So just yeah, I am in a unique position in inpatient rehab with our spinal cord patients that I get to know people very well. I get to spend 4 to 6, 8, if we're lucky, weeks getting to know these people and working with them and partnering them in their rehab journey. And so you share grief with people, you share exciting times of recovery with people, celebrate birthdays and anniversaries with people. You really it's not about me, it's about them. It's about what they need, right? And as a clinician, if I'm meeting their need, and if I'm not, then I need to do better. And so I am very thankful that the Christopher and Dana Reeves Foundation saw that we wanted to do better and knew that quality of life, that they have the same goals, that really it does align. This is a quality of life issue. And we're just offering hope. We're offering hope to people who need it and validating their concerns, getting back to that good life. Yeah.
Incredible. Thank you for sharing that. And Mark, as we look to the future, what does this look like in terms of potential collaboration between yourself, and the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation and MetroHealth?
Yeah, well, I think I have huge audacious goals maybe. Like I said, I want the project first of all, right? So my focus is on this project specifically, right? But I want this to be in every state, every rehab hospital, every spinal cord model system. I it is just so important. So my hope, right, is that together, you know, the Reeve Foundation and Metro Health can really take this and elevate it and doing something like this is just such a great start and opportunity for us, right? Because more people are going to get to hear about this. So, by people knowing about this, and I tell you, everywhere I go, I talk about this. Every hospital I go to, I'm telling them, "Well, you know what they're doing at Metro Health?" Like, just because it's like that kind of, competition or whatever, like, spurs people on. So I want people to go, wow, we're going to do that. Or, even if they're like, oh, we're going to do that and even better. Well, then whatever, right? So it's kind of like that's my that's my first goal, right? Is to make sure that this program is impacting us as a nation across the country, every territory where and across the world, right? Globally, actually, would be even better. But I think that, with what we're able to do, I think that this, like, to me, that's the start, and then after that, I mean, who knows, right? Like I'm saying the whole world is open after that.
Incredible. Thank you for sharing. And Marcia, I'd love to get your perspective on this as well. What does the future bring?
Well, I'm right there with Mark and Jillian, and we would love to see this as the prototype, if you will, and replicated around the world. I think you said, Mark. So happy that we can be the Metro Health has been the catalyst, if you will, and would love to work more with the Reeve Foundation in getting the word out and moving the project forward elsewhere.
Amazing. Well, Jillian, Marcia, Mark, thank y'all so much, for coming on the show and sharing this incredible story, journey, and also the need and impact it is making, on the members of your community that both of your organizations serve. And thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you so
you.
much, Grayson. And thank you, Mark.